Hello. Just getting settled in here. Hope everybody's been having a good day, a good weekend. Today we're going to go ahead and work on vectoring some of the sketches that I had done yesterday. So anybody who was here yesterday for that. I'm going to go ahead and start with the snake here. I'm still in Pixel Persona from when we were actually doing the drawing and whatnot. So I'm going to switch over to Designer Persona. I'm going to grab the pen tool. We're going to start here. I want to make one full shape for his head, and then we'll make a separate shape here for his body. So we'll start off here, which would be a good point to close that. You can hold Control to adjust the handle of this node. And then usually for a round shape like this, usually if you go right to the center or the apex, the outermost point of this curve, if you place a node there is usually a pretty good bet in order to get a nice even curve on each side. I'm just going to continue pointing and clicking all the way around here. And then this will close that shape. When I'm doing these types of drawings, especially for a cartoon character like this, I like to close off each shape, and I will come back later and I'll use the fill color to set the base color of the snake. And as far as vector art goes, this is one of the things, as far as creating these nice smooth curves, is something that takes just a little while getting used to. So I try to give you the best pointers I can to help speed that along. A lot of it just kind of comes with repetition though. But again, for instance, this part here, hitting the apex of this turn will help kind of smooth it out a little bit. But the more you do it, the more you'll get used to it, and you'll just place the nodes. You'll just kind of know where to place the nodes that works best. Just pull that handle back a bit. But it's a fun learning process. It's not incredibly difficult or hard or anything like that. So it's fairly enjoyable. And it doesn't take too long to build up. And then once you do, you kind of get that confidence. You start feeling good about it. And start trying other things as well. I have had people ask before, whenever I'm doing the drawing for, like the actual drawing like we were doing yesterday in the Pixel Persona here, where I actually came up with a sketch for the snake, I am using a drawing tablet, drawing display, so I'm drawing directly on the screen. So I do use a stylus to do the actual drawing part, but for all of the vectoring process, like this part here, for instance, and everything else we're going to be doing today, I use just the mouse. I just point and click. I've used the stylus before for this part of the vector process, but I just feel like sometimes my hand gets in the way. By using just the mouse, I can see everything on the screen. My hand's not going across the screen or anything like that. So now I do want to go ahead and make sure that I drag this curve, the curve of his body, under his head, because you want the head to be sitting on top. I'm going to select both of them, and I'll come to stroke, and I want to raise this. Let's try 5. 5 will work. I want it to be nice and bold. But we'll continue working on the head, and go ahead and create that nice ellipse just by selecting our ellipse tool there. Color, I want this to be light, almost white. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this ellipse, and then drag that top ellipse into the bottom ellipse. You can resize it like that. And now we're going to change it to a nice green eye. And then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this green as well, dragging it into our other ellipse here. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the fill there and just switch the black to fill. And now I'll create his pupil there. Now the ellipse tool is still selected. I'm going to go ahead and create one nice long ellipse, and I'll make that white. I want to drag this out and over so that it sits on top of the iris and pupil there. Selecting the ellipse tool again, I'm going to hold shift and create a small one there. Now for the outside, for the stroke width of the eye, since the actual outline is 5, I want to go ahead and make the stroke width for the eye itself a little smaller. So we can go ahead and go with 3 on that one. I'm going to have to go ahead and do that with this as well. Turn that to 3. We can even try a 2 on that just to make it a little more. There you go, something like that. Now let's see if we can create a whole part of his mouth here in one shot. Yeah, that'll work. And we'll bump this up a bit to about 3. Now, one other thing I want to go ahead and do is I want to kind of create this overlap in the eye here a bit. So something like that. I'm going to come over here to under the stroke panel to pressure. I'm going to click in the middle here. We'll create an anchor point. And now whenever you grab one side, they both tend to move at the same time. So you have to double click on the side that you want. Oh, that's the wrong side. We'll taper that out a little bit there. I'm going to hit escape and make sure that I've ended that line there. I'm going to go ahead and create one over here as well. But you can see now as we create new lines that it is holding that stroke pressure there. So it goes from thicker to thin. I really like that. So I just wanted to get those in there. Go ahead and do the same for his little nostrils. If you hit escape on the keyboard, it will end and terminate that line for you. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and continue along. I'm going to create an inside part to his mouth here. I want it to be a big shape. I'm going to pull this shape down and clip it into the mouth. I'm also going to come in here and I'm going to take the pressure off. I'm going to reset that pressure so that's nice and even now on both sides there. That's probably not necessary, so we can go ahead and get rid of this. So that'll be the inside of his mouth. You can always play around with that a little bit more. Oh, Jim, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That is super nice of you. Oh, thank you so much, Jim. Oh, that's very kind of you. I really do appreciate that. That certainly helps out a ton. I'm glad you enjoy the videos. If you ever have any questions in particular, like to see something, if you have a question in particular about something, please let me know. I could create a video on that to help answer any questions you have. I'm going to go ahead and create this coloring. I'm going to end up, the snout's going to be a different color. So we're going to pull this out of the mouth shape. I'm actually going to hold control. I'm going to select that, the mouth shape, and the eye. I'm going to drag it into our head shape here, as well as these. Holding shift, I want everything to be in that one shape. All right, now let's see. This one we're going to have to change this. Okay, and then with this mouth shape over that shape, it blocks it out there. So sometimes you got to get a little clever with vector art in how exactly you layer the different elements to get the look that you want. So that takes a little bit of time to get used to as well. It is something that I try to point out as much as I can in any of my videos. But yeah, in this case, we've got the mouth. If we were to take that away, we'd see the line to that curve. It's still clipped inside of our head shape, but now we have the mouth overlapping that. I'm going to go ahead and create our one of our little spots here. I'm going to lower the stroke on that. I'm going to try 2, and I'm probably going to try a lighter color like that. And now I've got most of the details in his head shape, so we're going to go ahead and select the head shape and give it a fill color. Body, I do want to go ahead and work out his belly here. I'll make that a lighter color as well. I want to drag this into our body shape. Select that same color. We got a little bit more back here by his tail. I'm going to come through and continue to go ahead and create these little spotted shapes. You can change these colors around a bit once we get everything in here. I've just done a green snake or cartoon snake recently, so this one I wanted to change up and make it more of a brown color. It's not any snake in particular. It's not a certain species of snake. So I didn't do a certain species for this. It's just it's a general snake. But yeah, again, thank you, Jim. Huge shout out to Jim for that donation. I really appreciate you. Anything I could do to continue to bring these tutorials to you? Snakes are fun because of the different patterns they can have, so you can get really creative and do quite a bit with them. Alright, now we're selecting this body, we'll go ahead and, actually that's a nicer color than I had for the head, so we'll go ahead and use that for the head as well. Let's make his belly bits slightly different color. Just kind of gray it out a little bit. So, come back into our stroke panel here. I'm going to set another point there. Double click on that side. Cool, pick the right side there. Alright, so we'll go ahead and do that. Jim, that's super cool. Yeah, that's exactly why I make the videos, to be honest with you. So I'm really glad that that they've been helpful. Yeah, it's just a matter of me trying to show you the process and give you some pointers along the way to kind of help speed it up and whatnot, because it took me a little while to go through here and kind of learn some of this stuff on my own, and I just try to pass that along. That's why if you ever have any questions about anything in particular, if you're working on something you might be stuck on, to just let me know. I have had several people reach out to me from the channel with questions regarding projects that they were working on, and I'm always happy to help the best that I can. I've been doing art for quite some time, so I like to be able to share what I've learned. I'm going to organize my layers here a little bit, so I'm going to bring this shape up to the top. I'm going to select that, hold shift, so I can select all of those little details, and I'm going to bring that into that top shape. And then we can move on to the next one here. Start down here to get the curve. And lines like this is a great opportunity for us to really be able to try to show the form of the snake. So with how these lines are wrapping around, we're trying to show the viewer that the bottom of the snake is round, and this will help us do that. So back to our layers panel here, I will select all of these and drag them down into that curve. And we have our last one here. But this shows you kind of the direction that the tail is moving and how it is sitting in space. So it's things like this that the viewer will pick up on. Even if they don't realize it, it's something unconsciously that that they'll see and will register and will kind of give everything its form. Back up to his face. Let's see. I want to see if I can get some of this body color into his face. I'm not sure it's going to work out the way I'm hoping it will, but we're going to give it a shot. So this shape is now sitting on top, so we're going to drag it down. Well, that actually works there. I like that. And I won't have I'm going to leave the stroke off of that. So we'll collapse these. I'm going to turn off the pixel layer. Pixel layer. Okay, there's the snake. Wow. I don't know if that's coming up on the mic or not. I got a storm over here. All right, so this is the basic. This is the snake. So we've gone through the vectoring process, and that's typically how I'll do a lot of these. I like to think about how I'm going to layer the objects. So I've got the head shape here, sitting on top of the body. The body is separate. The other great thing about vector is, especially if we've got scale with object, that means everything will scale proportionately. But this we could always change if you wanted to be a little longer, a little smaller, wider. So there's a lot of different things that we can do. Just back that up to getting back to normal. So that's the basic vectoring process. My approach would be using the pen tool to go ahead and break down the overall outside shapes first, and then I work in from biggest to smallest shapes and in what overlaps. Now, for these in particular, I'm going to add a little more detail to them. I'm going to add some shading and some lighting, which will really add some more form. And I'm going to show you how I do that as well. So I have a few different things that I tend to do that kind of cuts down some of the mental process involved. And if anybody's interested in color theory and how light and shadow works, I can always create videos along those lines and how they pertain to vector art and what in our particular process here. But we'll go ahead and we'll start with his head here. We're going to go ahead and think that we're going to pretend that our light source is up here. So while we're looking at the image in the upper right, so if the light is being cast from up here, it's going to hit the top of his head and cast shadows under his head. It'll cast shadows onto his body on the left side, and the right side of all the objects will be lit. So I'm going to grab the pen tool. And then this is going to be a way to really show and create form. So all of this is going to be in shadow. This little part of his lip will be in light. I'll hold control to pull this handle back a bit. If you hold space, you can move the whole node. Actually, we'll bring that up there just like this. Just that bottom part, and then we'll come up here and we'll close off this shape. Now what I'll tend to do is for the fill colors, I'll come over here and get a somewhat purplish pink, but I'm going to pull it closer to the gray, so it's a very desaturated purple. So desaturated would be, you know, when a color is very bright and vivid, that is highly saturated. Desaturating it will kind of dull that color out and bring it a little bit closer to gray. Then what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to change the layer attributes here to multiply. And you can see how now it kind of gives us that light, shadowy shape. I'm going to pull this into our head shape. I will keep it at the top so it overlaps all of the other things. And then what we can do is, with our node tool, if you hit A, we can move these around a bit. Something more like that. And then this here, I want this to read just a little bit differently. So I think we're going to try to pull these up a bit more. Just a bit like that. I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to create a ellipse as well. I'll select multiply again. This one I'm going to drag down below our eye. The move tool, I'm going to position that there. I'll go ahead and create. And now, as we're creating the shadow shapes here, we really want to think in terms of shape, and we want to think in terms of his whole snout here being like a physical shape. So if we were to have sculpted this, how, you know, what edges are round and what edges or surfaces are more flat? Are there any sharp corners, or is it more of a smooth edge and smooth transition? So we're going to come around in here like this. Another thing I'll do is I'll try to kill a couple birds with one stone, so to speak, and I'm going to try to get the shading of the mouth in here as well. So you can always follow along the lines in order to make sure there won't be any overlap. Once you set it to multiply, it becomes a little more transparent. So we go ahead and set that to multiply. We'll select our purple layer. So yeah, something kind of like that'll work. Now, yeah, I like that there. I'm going to go ahead and create a little bit of a shadow. This eye would technically be casting shadow, so we're just gonna have to see how this kind of looks. Looks a little awkward. So we can go ahead and delete that. Doesn't necessarily need any shadow, but we can also just go ahead and try. And this is why it's always worth just trying things, even if it doesn't really necessarily come out great at first. It's always worth a try. You never know what you might be missing. I'm not really digging any of that, so we're going to go ahead and pass on that for now. We could always come back if we feel it really does need something. But that's a pretty nice look for the face right now. Again, just going to try here a little bit, just try and maybe see what it's like if we define these shapes a little bit more. Good, I like that. Move down to his body. Now here he's going to have a shadow that's cast from his his head. We'll continue working our way around. So you can see how straightforward this process really ends up being. It is not overly complicated. It's just a matter of moving from one spot to the next. Could have continued that shape up here, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and create a new one. Now what can happen is when the multiply layers overlap, you do get that darker bit there. Because again, they're fairly transparent layers, so you can always just add, and now that can be one shape there. Our A tool, come in here, smooth that out. We'll just have to adjust these nodes just a bit. Sometimes you get weird little artifacts like that, but that's okay. Just move that away. Go ahead and continue working our way around. Cartoons like this are always a lot of fun for me. I always really enjoy them quite a bit. They be fun, silly, goofy, but still look really cool. And I think one of the things in as far as trying to get like a cool looking design is really just something that's appealing. Even if we can't pinpoint what exactly is so appealing about it, it's kind of what we're always looking to do, you know, kind of create something that's eye-catching, even if it's in a subtle way. I'll get the back side of this tail here. So again, if we've got our sun or our light source coming from up here, alright, let's bump the stroke up. I just want to show you all real quick kind of what's going on here. But you can see how the light is going to hit this top part, or this part here, or top bit here, if we were to extend that all the way down. So if all the light's coming from the right and upper right, then everything on the left and lower left is going to be in shadow. Just go ahead and keep that up there, just kind of give us that idea here. But back to the face, we're going to add some lighting now. So I'll show you how I go about doing that as well, and it's also a very straightforward process once we get started here. So what I tend to do is, if you have warm light, so like say sunlight in particular, if you have warm light, it's going to cast cool shadows. So this bright yellow, it's warm, so the shadows are that cool purplish color that we selected earlier. If you have cool light, say something from like a fluorescent bulb or one of the white fluorescent bulbs indoors, it's going to cast warm shadows. So you could have a bright white light that casts warm shadows. I tend to do warm light, cool shadows. Just kind of standard, not that I don't change that up, but it's typically what I will do in these cases. So we're going to go ahead and get our pen tool back out. And now we're going to start working our way around the outside edge. Okay, and now we'll select a nice bright color for the fill. I'm going to come up here to our layer attributes again, and we're going to take a look and see what soft light looks like versus hard light and vivid light. So you kind of see the differences there, or even overlay. So something like soft light's probably going to work best, so I'll drag that into our head shape. So you can kind of see what that looks like there. We can always change the color a bit as well, so if we want to get a little bit brighter, something like that. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to come up to quick effects, come down to Gaussian blur. I'm going to try 4 pixels. We're going to try 6 pixels. So 6 pixels kind of works. I want that to fade out just a bit. Actually, let's see 12, what 12 looks like. Alright, 6 it is. And now what I'm going to go ahead and do is, in order to make sure that if I ever adjust the size of this, that will stay the same. I don't know why they don't have a cog wheel here on Gaussian blur, but if we come up to outer shadow, click on the little cog wheel, I'm going to go ahead and select scale with object. So that effect will scale proportionately. Now we could try adding, say there's a little bit of light. Now another cool thing that we could do is if we take and grab the FX here and drag it, it will apply those same effects to that as well. Now something we could do is that looks a little too much contrast here, so we could either just lower the opacity on it and get something that's a little more subtle like that, which looks pretty good. We could also come over here to our transparency tool and play with the transparency of it as well. So have the harder transparency the closer it is to the light source, and then have it fade out, which looks even nicer. We should probably go with something like that. And then that's pretty much it for the face. For this style of cartoon, I don't want to go too detailed or try to get too crazy with that. So that I think works well. Sometimes if you add too much, you can really just end up bogging down the drawing and becoming less. You want it to be easy and readable. And so sometimes too much detail can kind of really bog down that idea. I'm going to open up that. I'm going to drag this FX down here as well. We're going to play around with this shape here a bit. It's not reading on that gray that much, but that's okay. So what we could do is we're gonna roll with this. So something like that. That still works. It's still looking good. Come in here. We adjust these nodes here in a moment. I'll select a node tool. We can just bump this guy up a little bit. So in situations like this, if I had it down here and the light is covering, it's intersecting right at that line there, which is fine. It creates a little bit of a tangent, so those two things kind of end up blending together. So what I would go ahead and do in this situation is move this so that way it intersects and cuts through there. Ideally, you'd want the same down here. It's small little things like that that might throw the viewer off when they read it. So I try to avoid that as much as I can. Alrighty. Pull that in there for now. I'm going to steal this FX quick, and now we'll drag this all the way back down to the body. But that's basically a quick idea of what our snake is going to be like, and of the vector process in general. So we started off with the pen tool, started with the ink lines, as I like to call them, but we started with our lines. We created the whole outside shape of the face, and then worked on the larger shapes to the smaller shapes. Same for the body. Then we came in with our multiply layer for the shadows, and then our soft light layer for the body. I'm sorry, for the light. So I'm going to go ahead and group these, the head and the body, and we'll go ahead and label that snake. So that'll be our finished snake vector. And we'll move on to the next vector. Yeah, Jim, absolutely. It's my favorite part. Creating like just a flat colored image is fun and can be cute because you can have the stark contrast and colors to make it pop. But I always really love adding the lighting, because that's really what gives it form. Once you add lighting to something, the shadows pop out and it really shows off the form. So there's some other drawing techniques too, as far as getting used to form, which I will go over in another video or another live stream. So we can talk about that a little bit more. I'm going to grab a cup of coffee quick. I'll be back in just a minute. So enjoy the music and hang tight. Alright, we're back. Thanks for hanging tight. Alright, so I'm really happy with that snake. Now we've got bucket, flamingo, our hamster, or the toucan that we can do. If there's one in particular you'd like to see, let me know. Got the bucket, flamingo, the hamster, our toucan, and then Saturn, but we'll do Saturn here in a little bit. I'm looking for one more character. Jim, hamster, you got it. Hamster it is. So we're going to go ahead and do this one very much like we did the other ones. Again, just to go ahead and really show the process here. When I'm looking at this in particular, just like when I was drawing it, I'm thinking his whole body, you know, including his hair, so this is all going to be one shape. Then his puffy cheeks would be another shape that would sit on top. Oh, no worries, no worries, I got you, Jim. So then, yeah, you bet, James. Here we go. Puffy cheeks, the nose will sit on top of the puffy cheeks, the ears will be sitting behind, I'll put his arms on top, and the same with his feet, right? So what we'll go ahead and do, I'll hop right in, I'm going to grab our pen tool. I usually start at a sharp point here. Drag out, I'll click that to close it, or at least to create that sharp point. And I want a little variety in the little spikes in his hair. You know, we've got these two going this way, so throwing one the other way creates a little bit of that symmetrical look, which could be appealing as people look at it. Again, it's one of those things that people may not necessarily know why they like something, but it's little things like that that could be the reason it could add up to what makes someone like one of your drawings or illustrations versus a drawing or illustration that they kind of just glance right over. So it really is, when it comes to visual mediums like this, it really is the little things that add up a lot. So those are the things that I really do try to focus on as an artist. I got started as a comic artist. I have a strong background in comic art, and everything with comic art is really about being as clear as possible. We want everything to be readable. We want the viewer, the reader, to look at what we've done and recognize it immediately, know what's going on immediately. We don't want them to have to question anything or take a step back and look at it for too long, because it'll pull them right out of the drawing or right out of the story that you're working on. Now, I'm also going to probably only just do the one ear. I like the shape of this ear. We'll probably end up just copying it over to the other side. Back that up just a little bit and see if I can't get a better look to it. Yeah, something more like that. And then while we're here, I'll go ahead and create the inner part of the ear as well. I'll escape on that. I'm gonna go over here to our pressure real quick. So we got that one ear. I'm going to make sure that I drag that inside curve of the ear into the ear shape itself. I'll drag that below the body. And now I'm probably going to wait to color that and shade it before I flip it to the other side. That way I'm not redoing too much work. I like to kind of, especially when it comes to stuff like this, I mean, I want to work smart. I want to utilize my time the best that I can. I don't want to, you know, completely render something over here and then have to do it again on the other side. So just some time-saving techniques, especially when it comes to client work, and if you have a bunch of this stuff, you know, you kind of need to be able to get through it to some extent. So do 3 on that. Yeah, the node tool. I'm going to mess with this just a little bit. The move tool, I can hold Alt, which will duplicate the shape as I drag it. Alright, that probably won't work. It might, it's even, so we're going to leave it right there. I'm going to, oh no, let's go back. Leave that there for now. I don't want these lines to follow. It's going to be hard to overlap the mouth and get that to work right, so we're going to have to get a little sneaky here with this. Kind of make that read as one line there. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this shape and drag it into itself with the move tool selected. The shape on the inside I'm going to just downsize a bit. Alrighty. And now we'll come back up here to doing the actual cheeks. Close that so you get more of a sharp edge there. Come down here. Fuzzy little cheeks. So I'm ending each one of these in order to get a sharper, tighter turn. Alright, we'll do the same things we did with the eyes earlier. I've got that ellipse in there. I'm going to drag it below the mouth shape there, so it'll sit behind the cheeks. Once we colored the cheeks, I am going to duplicate this and drag it into itself. Move his eyes over here. He has some nice blue eyes. We'll duplicate that again and drag it into the shape as well. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the fill and just set that to black. Okay, now above that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the ellipse tool again. Nice, long, thin ellipse. And then I'm going to hold shift to get circles. And then what we could go ahead and do is I'm going to select that eye, I'm going to hold Alt, which will duplicate it, and we're going to bring it right over here. I'm going to go ahead and give him some eyebrows as well, so with our pen tool, something like that. Come back over to our stroke, to pressure. I'm going to set a midpoint there. Now, instead of selecting just one node on either side, I'm going to select both just by clicking on either end. It'll select both at the same time, and then it'll taper out both sides of that. Now, that stroke setting will be set and there. So I could come over here, back that up. You have to hit escape to end that. I can't tell you how many times I do that. But we'll go ahead and create one on this side. Hit escape to end that. And now we got some eyebrows. I'm going to go ahead and create this shape here on the inside. Now, this is going to kind of be like his belly shape and whatnot, but I'm going to use the flow of this to try to kind of hint at his leg shape here. Let's hold control and move that node handle back a little bit. And then pull this down and around. And back over this way. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to reset that pressure. And I want to drag the shape down. Into the body shape. Let's see here. Alright, so we'll go ahead and do, let's work on his little paws. Hold control to move that handle back. So he's just got these cute little paws. On this side, we'll have them, we'll actually end up closing the shape off. And then you can't forget about his little tail back here. Space to kind of move that around a bit if need be. And again, just like when I drew this, I wanted it to be a shape that's a little different than just a round ellipse, just to give it a little more character, a little more personality. And then we'll work on his little feats here. There's a good chance we can use whatever we do up front here for his back as well. His little back feet. I can group these, I can hold Alt. Kind of make them just a little bit smaller too, so now I've got his back feet as well. I'm gonna come in here, we'll select the same, oops, keep doing that too. All right, there's the fill. There's our stroke. All right, we're gonna get his cheeks. His nose. There you go, kind of like brownish nose. His hands, his little arms, we're going to go ahead and make that same kind of brown. I lost it in my swatches here for whatever reason. So we'll go to color picker, pick that color. So that's back up here. Do the same for the ear and his little tail. Get rid of the stroke on that one. Put this in his ear. Alright, something kind of like that. And then what I could do here is I want to kind of give him a little bit of a little crease, come up to stroke, we'll go to pressure. Alright, this I want to make a little bigger. That's the great thing, we can always adjust things very easily with vector. Remove tool here. Turn off the pixel layer there. It's missing an ear now though. But we'll go ahead and even if we want to add some more details here, well, actually what we'll do real quick while I'm thinking about is we'll just add a little like chest fuzz. And then I wonder, just let's see what it would look like real quick. I don't really think it's the... No, we'll get rid of that. It's the unnecessary detail. Alright, so looking at the ear, because I want to go ahead and add some shadow and light to the ear, and then we'll flip it around to the other side. But again, for something like this, I'm going to kind of go with the standard of what I have done. I'll have the light coming from the upper right. So everything on the right side and upper right side will be lit. And then everything on the left side and lower left bottom will be in shadow. Now, considering this will be an opening to his ear, we're going to have inside shadow. I'm going to reset this stroke pressure quick. Color, I'm going to come up here. I still have it up here. For that, select multiply. And I'll also be able to do the same for this portion. Just back that up a bit. Boom. Drag both of these into the ear itself. And then now our lighting. Again, to kind of blur that lighting out a little bit, we'll Gaussian blur. We'll try 6 pixels on this one as well. Outer shadow, click on that cog wheel and we'll select scale with object. So we've got that ear. Now what I could do is select the entire ear. I'll hold Alt and then Shift will drag it. Shift will help keep it in line. Alt duplicates it. I'm going to come up here and flip it horizontally. And now we've got the ear on both sides. I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to create a couple of ellipses. Multiply. And we're going to pull these below the eyes. Move tool, I'm going to Alt to drag that shape behind our other eye. See how we want to go ahead and handle this shape. I'm going to have a little bit of like light catching the outside portion of his lip. So we're going to go with something like this and see how it looks. Like a little more here. This, I'll try to go ahead and kind of get the inside of his mouth too. And then I'll follow this line back across. That way we don't have any overlap. I want the shadow to stay under the lip. If I were to go like this, it would then be on top of the lip as well. So this way the actual line will hide the edge. Let's see there. Now if I duplicate this and I select that fill and I kill a stroke on it, I could set this to multiply. And with the move tool I could drag that down ever so slightly. I want it to be under that lip shape there. So something just like that, just to give us a little dimension in there. His nose, I'm going to go ahead and create a shadow on this side. Any sort of lighting. So I'm going to add the general lighting that we have done on the ears. I'm going to add that Gaussian blur. But I also want to, since this is nose, and usually, like especially animal noses, get kind of wet and have that moisture, I do want to add just a few little. Change that to white. Hold Shift, and you can just do a couple of. It's kind of like he's got a wet little nose. Gotta have that curving. So something like that kind of gives it just a little extra interest here. And then considering the lighting on the rest, something more like this. Now I can drag this FX down. There we go. Sometimes, you know, working in vector arts really is about smarter, not harder. Although thinking about, let's get rid of that for just a second. I'm going to come over here to our ellipse tool. I'm going to try something else real quick. So we'll go ahead and throw the FX in there. Now I'm going to grab our transparency tool. Alright, so what we'll go ahead and do is I'm going to adjust this, make it a really big ellipse, and I want to keep it right outside the shadow there. And then what we'll do is we'll use the transparency tool to kind of bring in some of that light. I'm going to duplicate it. Move tool, I'm going to move it over to this side. You can flip it horizontal. Sometimes it's not about it being 100% accurate, and more so about what looks best and what reads best in the illustration, in the drawing. So it's always good to kind of experiment and try different things. Now, one thing that I'm going to want to do is I don't want it overlapping the mouth like that. So with the node tool A select, if I convert to curves, it'll allow me to start manipulating the shape more. So I'll add some additional nodes. That way I can tuck these nodes up and away. And I still got that nice bright look there. If anyone has any questions while I'm working on this, just let me know. I'd be happy to answer it to the best of my ability or show you a little demonstration of what I might be talking about. So back up to the main shape here. I could get kind of clever about it. And what we'll do is we'll come down this side of his face, over to this part of his body here. I'm going to create this shadow here, and we can work it right into the back. Alright, we'll select. I'm gonna go to their swatches. Oh, I've lost it. That's a bummer. Right, so in a situation like this, I lost the particular gray, so I'm gonna go ahead and take that off of multiply. Come in here to color picker tool. Okay, I've got that back up there now. I'll select that back to multiply. Find the shape I was just working on. Okay. I'll hit it with that and multiply. We'll drag this into his body shape. So with that, we've been able to get the cast shadow from his head here. What we'll go ahead and do too is I want a little bit of cast shadow from his paw. Set that to multiply. We do it over here as well. His little tail. Pull that outside of there. Okay, so while we're at the tail, we'll go ahead and add a little bit of light to the top part here. Oh, I've lost my light bit now. So we'll go back up here. Okay. I wish you had some more control where they gave you a few more little swatches there would be nice. I go back and forth to that all the time. Let's get his tail. That's the curve, so soft light. We'll go to Gaussian blur. 6 pixels, back up to outer shadow, cog wheel, scale with object. I'll drag that in there. We will go ahead and add a little bit of light to this outside arm. We'll probably leave, well, we'll see what some light looks like on the other arm as well, but got a hair. Let me try hitting that with the transparency tool real quick. So we'll go from that to that. Yeah, there we go. Subtle, but it works. Let's come over to the other side and see if we're going to do anything. No, it's too far away from the light. We're not going to do that for that. I'm going to add a ellipse. To his tummy here. Add some blur to this. A little bit more. I want this to be subtle here on his stomach. I might actually need that at all. I don't think it's really bringing much to the table. I don't like that hard line here. So we're actually going to go ahead and just get rid of that for now. Because we could get some light up here, which I think would end up being better. Soft line, we'll drag that there. I'm gonna drag this up to his. Oh yeah, no, that's right. We gotta keep it in his body layer. Okay, just like that. I already deleted that other oval because we can almost try one here. Hey James, when creating the shadows, highlights, would it be easier, quicker to use the pencil tool with a fill to make them? Yeah, very possibly. It's not something I've tried, but yeah, I can't see why not. It's something I'll have to give it a shot. Try here in just a minute. But yeah, definitely, if it's something that you do, it's a part of your process, yeah, by all means, it's whatever works. It's let's give it a shot. I don't use the pencil tool very often. But yeah, I mean, you could certainly do this. I'm sure we could set it up to auto fill. Yeah, use fill. We would still have to come over here and select multiply. It's the one thing that I do have to find out if there's any way of being able to have it always just do the same thing, like always select multiply. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty decent there. To be honest with you, it's not something I had thought about doing before, but it seems to work pretty well. We've got the fill set. So that's the only part, losing the line there. But that's cool. That's definitely worth exploring a little bit more and trying out. So thank you for the suggestion. Is that something that you've done in your work as well? Or is it just something you kind of thought about while watching me do it? So he's looking pretty good. We've got our main shapes in there. Everything's got its light and shadows. So I'm pretty happy with the way this one looks overall. Yeah, you're right though, James. The clicking can get a little much sometimes. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, it's a good technique. It's something that I'm gonna play around with more and see if it's something I start incorporating. But yeah, it's typically personal preference. There's always more than one way to do any single thing in any of these art programs, really. But especially when it comes to vector, there's multiple ways of doing the same thing. So it does come down to personal preference. And then sometimes too, I just kind of got stuck. I mean, I was just using a pen tool. It's something that I've done. I didn't really think about trying to utilize the pencil tool outside of there. So I appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, it's always worth trying new things. So just because it's something that I haven't done before doesn't mean it's not something that I shouldn't try, get used to, and explore further. That, again, it's just one of the things that can help you grow as an artist, always trying new things and coming up with better ways of doing other things, and learning from other artists. So, super cool suggestion, thank you. Continue messing around with that. So we got the hamster. I'm gonna go over Saturn quick here. I'm gonna ungroup Saturn quick though. That way I can select the shapes a little more easily. We got our stroke there, which we'll set to 5. And I want the strokes to kind of descend in order. Duplicate that one again. One. So I'm going to end up changing all of those colors for sure, but that stroke a little bit. It's sticking out too much. And then we can also take that ring too, if we set that pressure, put a middle point there and drag down, it will thin that line out in the back, so it's receding in the distance. We'll want to go ahead and do that. And make that 5. I'm going to select my rings and turn them off for right now. I'm going to get a nice cool color, maybe do some sort of blue. I'm going to come over here to a gradient tool. Turn the gradient tool to radial. Fits the sphere idea a little bit more. I want to take this shadow and bump it a little bit closer to purple. And we're going to come and look at our shape tool. Oops, got our shape tools. I'm going to select the crescent tool. Come up to the stroke panel and reset that pressure. The stroke. Now I'm just going to play around a little bit. I want to try a couple of things. Maybe by creating kind of some lines like that. I'm going to hold Alt. First 3. Again, maybe to kind of conform to the sphere a little bit more. I'm going to grab our transparency tool. We're going to go this way with it. Actually, let's back that up. I'm going to grab all of the crescents and the transparency. Nope, I said I'm going to grab. Let's back that up. All of the crescents. So something like that. Now what I want to go ahead and do too is I'm going to back that up. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate this last ellipse there. I'm going to come back up over here. I'm going to select that shadow color I've been working with, and we're going to go up here to multiply. So I got that shadow shape now. I'm going to make it a little bit darker. The shape a bit. so what I'm going to go ahead and do with this is I'm going to add some blur to it. I want this one to fade out like that. I'm going to come up to outer shadow and click on the cogwheel to scale off objects. Now, this is a great way to light a sphere. So this is good practice. Like whenever you're in any traditional drawing, you always start with the sphere and you light it. So there's two ways we could do this part here. I could duplicate this again. Move tool, I can move this down towards the bottom. And then this I'll take off of multiply, put it on soft light, and we'll select a nice lighter color. So what we're doing here is we're getting some bounce light. So the main light's hitting it here, it turns to shadow, and then we've got some residual light that's coming up back from probably the rings or something, but we'll get there. I'm going to create a nice bright oval spot here. I can always mess with the size of this in just a minute. I'm going to come up here and set this to soft light and Gaussian blur. That kind of gives us our specular highlight, or at least, well, not the specular highlight, but this gives us our nice bright highlight where it's shapes catching the most sun and light. Come in here. So we've got the main light, it then travels around, gets to the shadow end of it, and then back out into some light. Outer shadow, cogwheel, scale with object. I'm going to come back and select my original crescent shapes here, and I'm going to come up here, I'm going to click on opacity, I'm going to switch it to noise. I'm going to see what it looks like if I add some noise to the crescents. Kind of gives it just a little extra. So scale with object, what it'll do is it'll keep everything in line and scaled proportionately. Let me actually back that up because we do have the rings to turn back on here. I'm going to turn on all the rings. What color rings should we go for? So I'm going to select all of these, including the planet. I want to turn it. Or I can make them all just a little bit bigger, holding shift. I want to keep everything in proportion though. Alright, so now the interesting part, how are we going to get the sphere to cover up the back portion of the rings? So there's a couple different ways we could go about doing it. I'm going to go ahead and select all of the rings and put them into a group. Now, if we switch over to Pixel Persona, and if we select our eraser tool, with that group of rings selected, we can start erasing, and it will erase and mask out, essentially just masking out those back rings. I have to zoom in there to make sure we get it nice and close. I'm going to go ahead and the eraser smaller. Come over to our other side here. Something just like that. We can always so you could do it by erasing the rings itself, or if you wanted to, you could also duplicate the planet and pull the planet on top and erase just part of the planet. What we're going to do is we're going to back all this up just a little bit. I want to center the planet better. If you hold Control and Shift, it'll scale everything proportionally here. So we're going to do that. I'm going to select this group again, and then so the only other way you could do it is if you were to duplicate planet, put the planet over here, and then you would essentially just erase the part of the planet that you didn't want. But I like the other method, so we're going to go ahead and stick with that. And just erase. And so this creates a non-destructive mask. So you can always come back and re-edit it later or change it. And for a project where I'm creating the work and then exporting it as a PNG, so it'll be a flat image anyways, this works because this is not a vector process, so this will not scale. You'll lose resolution on it eventually, but these are going to be exported as flat PNGs to be used for a children's math book, like a workbook. Back over here to the designer persona. There you go, and then we got Saturn. Let me actually try something quick. Let me take the stroke off of all of the. It's kind of cool. And then we could just kind of lower the stroke here a little bit. Maybe put the stroke on. Actually, that ends up working pretty good. I'm making a few adjustments here. Cool. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty unique. Let's see if I duplicate that. Let me add a stroke to it, and let me see if I can't hide it. Trying to get to where it'll just give me the black, black stroke on the inside. Nope. Yeah, so that actually works like that. So sometimes, there's always kind of a way to do it. You just got to mess around with it a little bit. What, everything, even the planet? Let's see. if I select everything, just eliminate all the strokes, it's a cool effect. And you got that little bit of white sticking out from where we did the erasing. You know, it's funny that you said that you wondered what it looked like without the strokes, because sometimes when I'm working on certain things, I'll do that. It'll just cross my mind all of a sudden. I wonder what this figure would look like without the stroke lines on there, or what the cartoon would look like. And there's a whole nother, that's a whole nother style. And it's something that I've played around with before, and I'd like to get into a little bit more. I'll make a note, but let's see here. We're doing a full cartoon image without stroke would be really cool. And there are definitely ways of doing that. So you can create cartoon images without the stroke lines, and you could get some really cool like quote unquote painted or sculpted looks and feels out of that. So that's something that we could definitely explore. I tend to use the stroke line art like that all the time because I come from a comic book background where, you know, everything is drawn with the hard line art, and then you have the colors come in and color and add the effects and everything like that. So it's just like ingrained in my head, and it's kind of how I tend to, I guess, see things for the most part. But I'm always very interested in the other side of it. What are things like without the stroke and such? But there you go. Yeah, that was a cool, cool little look at that. So we could regroup these. Saturn. Okay, let's see. Alright, give me just a second. Yeah, we could actually, why don't we do that real quick. I'll show you what, because I do have a little trick I like to use for space and stuff. So we'll get rid of that. We'll move the stroke, create a black background. I'm going to push that behind Saturn. It looks really neat like that. So one thing that we can do is we can create, holding shift, you know, a bunch of little stars. So if you came in here and just with various sizes, you know, and then we could essentially grab all of those, group them. We can hold Alt and move them around and do that. We can do that a bunch of different times. Another thing that I think I like quite a bit is if we come over here to Window and come over to Assets. I got a lot of these assets from Affinity's website. Some of them I believe were free. Some of them I might have paid for. I don't quite remember at this point. I've had them for quite a while. But they do have some cool ones, like Falling Snow. Now that one's a little like chunky, so get rid of that. But you can always kind of scale them down a bit and move them around. There are others. Don't quite remember. Yeah, that one's pretty good. This one could be good. We could pull that under Saturn. This is one that I like a lot. I think works pretty well. So that'll give you the star effect real quick and real easy. The other way to do it is like I was showing you initially, where you create the individual circles and then continue just to lay them out. Rain. Some of the snow overlays work really well. But you can combine them as well, or you can just make them smaller and then move them around. So there's definitely a few different options and ways of going about doing that, but that is a cool and pretty easy way of doing that, is using the assets. And then you can make the assets on your own. Again, that's a whole other thing that we can get into later on, but these are really just PNG flat images that you can overlay. So they are not, it's not a vector asset, so if you were serious about having it be fully vector, then yeah, you'd want to do kind of what we were doing in the beginning here and just have just holding shift and doing some quick drags. You want different sizes, you want to space them all differently. Doing this, you will eat up quite a bit of space and memory, but you know, because you can even do little ellipses and stuff too. You can fade them out a bit, so you could really get into it and create a really cool space background in a variety of ways, which is kind of neat. So there's a video I have on my channel called it's a vector rose. I did a rose in space. It's one of my favorite illustrations I've done, and one of my favorite videos in general that I've done. Let me see if I can't track it down real quick. It was one of the first videos that I had done. Yeah, here is here's part one. Yeah, so I have a whole video on this vector rose that I did in space. So I created this crazy space background, and also had like different colored galaxies and stuff in the background. So if you wanted to, you could check out those two videos there. That's the entire process, and then I have a quick speed art video if you just want to watch the overall process without any talking. That's the third one here. But yeah, on those I created full space background, galaxies and stuff as well. Move this up here. So we've got those. Clear this up a bit. Awesome, James. Sounds good. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate everybody being here today, hanging out in chat, talking a bit. Super cool of you. Thank you. Alright, so let's see. We did our hamster, our snake, which I'm really happy with the way the snake came out. It's little things like I like the highlight on his cheek quite a bit, so it's little things like that. And then our fun little version of a ringed planet, Saturn or not. All right, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. I'll be back later on in the week. We'll finish up these vectors. I've got a few more here that are ready to go. Flamingo, the toucan, and the bucket. So we'll get to these. I really appreciate you stopping by and hanging out. We'll do more of these. I'm going to just stream more regularly, and we'll eventually come up with some sort of schedule. But I really appreciate you all for being here. I have a Patreon page. It's links right under my banner on YouTube. So I have a Patreon page where I share these images, also color palettes, and any templates, and some behind-the-scenes stuff to build off of the tutorials that you see here. And if you subscribe to one of the higher tiers, I also upload high-resolution images of the artwork that I do, so you could always go and print those out on your own to have prints. So you can always join me on Patreon, which I'm continually trying to build and add more to. I also have Buy Me a Coffee linked in YouTube banner as well. Any and all donations really help. I really appreciate it. It helps me continue to run the channel and bring you tutorials and videos your way. But yeah, thank you again so much for spending part of your weekend with me and on this Saturday. I appreciate you. Have an awesome rest of the weekend. Take care, keep drawing, and see you next time.